everyone? Steve Metrics here of Db8 Sports with yo boy
DJ Triggs.
And together we are Db8 Sports, and we are recapping this 2024 NFL draft. And how about this draft, Triggs?
Oh my gosh. 50 quarterbacks in the first 3 picks. It was insane. I don't know how we do this.
I know, but I think I can say for both you and me, both of our teams trended in the right direction.
Oh, really? Can you explain? Let's get the gloves off. Boom.
Absolutely.
You know I love Mr. Brock Bowers, and I was very excited when you sent me the message, and I was like, "What?" So
right.
you got the Halloween killer and the next George Kittle. So I don't know what 12 personnel means to you, but let me have it. What do you got?
12 personnel to me is my favorite. It's my favorite in fantasy football as well. Anytime I can unload 2 of the top 5 tight ends in a starting lineup, it's ridiculous. I'm not saying we have 2 of the top 5 tight ends, but possibly 2 of at least the top 10. And to put those guys out there, put out the size, and on top of that, the height and the route running that Jacoby Myers has. But then the ace in the hole, the Devontae Adams factor, it's going to be really tough covering those 4 guys for any secondary that exists in the NFL. I think we have 4 guys that are just absolutely monstrous to deal with now.
So, I was really excited about this guy. I even said that I was a little crazy. I understand that. But I said he could even be the best player in the draft.
Yeah.
And that sounds insane, but he's 6'3", 250 pounds. The dude is fast. He's literally elite of the elite.
He is.
The comparison of George Kittle might not even be high enough.
Wow. I just kind of based off of kind of what I've seen lately. I guess the one that he probably reminds me of is he reminds me of Dalton Kincaid in Buffalo.
Oh.
I see a lot of similarity in how physical those guys are, and even flat out just fantasy in general for this season. I think both guys are going to be fantastic. If I had to go one or the other, I'd probably go Dalton Kincaid because obviously he doesn't really have too much to deal with in Dawson Knox. But Buffalo's going to run that 12 personnel out there just like the Raiders are. So be ready to get both of them. And maybe even you take one, you handcuff the other, you figure it out, you do something. Both teams are really going to utilize a tight end for sure and size.
So the crazy part about him, size off the charts.
Yep.
So the stat that caught my attention more than anything, this dude, he's a great open field runner. He's fast. Tight end fast. He played in the slot a lot, which is right over my head bananas.
Yep.
So the even better part, the dude averaged 12 yards a carry.
Wait, running? Running a football?
Carry. Yes.
Oh, no.
And 3 rushing touchdowns.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a small sample size. He wasn't just a running back or anything, but 12 yards a carry for a tight end.
Yeah, I don't want to make the comparison to who he is as an individual, but that is reminiscent of what the Patriots had back when they had Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. You had Hernandez running the football, and then you had Gronk blocking downfield. I guarantee the Raiders are working on that as we speak. Plus, you have remnants of the Patriot regime that know this.
Yeah. And then on top of that, it's going to sound nuts, but at 13, he was a bargain.
I did it when I heard. So this is how this went down. I'm at work, and I know that we are on the clock, and we're coming up. And I'm in a hallway talking to a friend, and he's like, this is gonna sound weird, but what if you guys got Brock Bowers? And I'm like, Brock Bowers? How's that guy gonna fall to us? And there's teams ahead of us that I know that would obviously want a guy like him. And sure enough, the Chargers and Titans and Jets all went offensive linemen. A certain team we'll get to shortly took a quarterback that was highly questionable in a way. And then the team ahead of us was Denver, who I have always said, and I've said it multiple times here, Bo Nix goes to the Denver Broncos. I've always thought that Bo Nix would just naturally fall to the Broncos, and he did.
He did.
And 13 is us, and I couldn't believe it, man. I was ecstatic. I just could not believe that guy was at 13.
Yeah. And like I said, like how? Like how is this guy at 13?
I could have seen him going at like 7 or so.
Yeah, apparently to
Either the
the
Chargers,
ESPN,
Titans, Jets.
yeah, the ESPN like overall projections and like grades and stuff like that. He had the same grade as Roma Duze. Like
Wow.
like I, I don't even know what to say. Like I'm
Yeah.
so excited for that player and it's nuts.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I know people are excited about Marvin Harrison. I'm the other way, man. Like, I think Roma Dunze is probably going to be either the best or like minimum like third best rookie wideout from this draft. He's going to get the third best coverage from any team every single week. Roma Dunze is going to be absolutely awesome. And eventually
Yeah.
he's going to become a Devontae Adams one day.
Yeah, the dude, he's a stud. Am I angry that the Bears got him? A little bit. Uh, a little bit. Like
Yeah.
he's a comparison. Like again, I'm going through some of the draft stuff still. He's
Yeah.
compared to Jamar Chase, like out of
Yeah.
college, being like basically that is nuts.
Yeah. I think the receiving core that they have in Chicago is arguably the best three wideout set receiving core in the NFL. It is really that good, man.
Yeah, I mean, as long as Keenan Allen hasn't lost a step,
Right. He's got to
like
stay healthy.
yeah, and they can somehow figure out how to get Rome in there. Like, and I know both of us are. I think we're still the same, but if Caleb Williams is the guy that he's supposed to be, then sure. But if
Yeah.
he's not, then they could just have these three wide receivers and Cole Kmet out there, and maybe hope for the best.
Yeah. I think it's literally that. And man, I mean, honestly, I'm looking at Chicago's draft board, and there's not much. Like
No,
they pretty much had to make the two picks that they had in Caleb and Rome, and that's fantastic. But outside of that, they really had nothing. They even had to burn a pick on a punter.
yep. No, hey, best offensive weapon in Iowa though.
That is true. Iowa football does not score points. They are not the Caitlin Clark show of sports. That's for sure when it comes to men's football.
He broke the record for the longest punt. So like that's all I remember of that guy. That's it.
Okay. Okay.
I,
All
I
right.
think he booted one like 70 yards or something ridiculous. Now,
Oh,
Austin Booker, the edge rusher that they got in like the fifth round,
yeah.
sixth round. I'm gonna try to find it here. Yeah, fifth
Okay.
round. That dude he's pretty solid. Like Kansas's defense was okay. Like they
Sure.
weren't great, but that's what they hung their hat on. And the dude was really good.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of looking at what Chicago did the rest of this draft. And
Pretty
granted,
bad.
there's not much. Well, I mean, it's 5 picks.
Yeah.
Like it literally is 5 picks, one of which is a punter. Obviously, the other half are Caleb and Rome. You got an edge rusher in that. And then obviously they had to make a lot of phone calls post draft. And I'm looking at some of these phone calls that they made, one of which is a corner. I got looks like a linebacker in here. And actually we have multiple corners. a linebacker, a defensive tackle, another edge rusher, and looks like a running back and also a tight end because, well, okay. Yeah, so that's it, man. They looks like they also brought in a quarterback, Austin Reed. Okay. So I don't know. I mean, they kind of hit up the team, the positions that were in need just by flat out picking up the phone after the draft. And that's what they're going to have to roll with. It just is
Yeah.
what it is.
And like the bad part about that is they were the bottom half in scoring defense last year. Like they gave up um, they gave up the least amount of rush yards, but like teams were able to throw all over them.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
they were the one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL, and it's like, yeah, you definitely racked up. Like just looking at their depth chart, yeah, you grabbed DeAndre Swift and Khalil Herbert's still back there. My boy Rashawn Johnson, yeah, you got Keenan Allen in Rome, but like, is there anyone to block for this guy? Like, is there anyone to block
Right.
for Caleb Williams? Um,
Yeah.
and is your defense still just going to be like Swiss cheese? Probably. And it's like, well, are you going to outscore teams? You got a good shot at that if Caleb Williams is as good as, you know. I mean, I saw one draft, uh, it might actually be ESPN that I'm thinking about, that compared him to Aaron Rodgers. Just saying.
Mm.
I don't know how you do that, but
Yeah.
like
I
the
gotta see it first, man.
yeah, right. And so like to me, it's one of those things where okay, the Packers defense is going to be a lot more improved, especially we'll get to their draft, I'm sure, at some point. Um, and their defense was already pretty solid, and their offense is going to be, pretty darn good again. The Lions, their defense is really good, and
Yep.
their offense is going to be pretty good again. So
Yes.
like, unless the Bears hit like some like crazy level, I I don't really see where they're gonna improve very much, except trying to outscore people.
Yeah, it's definitely going to take some of that, some of the outscoring to get that done. I mean, just looking at the guys they brought in of the, I don't know, I'm looking at here, I'm seeing four guys that they've either brought in or drafted that are between the center, the left guard, and the left tackle. And Caleb is a right-handed quarterback, so they definitely have to make sure they get the left tackle side correct. They still have Tevin Jenkins as a guard. Looks like Braxton Jones is there as well. So they got some guys. The tight end crew they got is very strong between Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett. So they got some stuff there. But definitely that defense definitely turned the corner and came in pretty well once they brought in Montez Sweat. So that kind of changed things for them. Just kind of looking on where he is on this sheet. Oh yeah, there he is, left defensive end. So yeah, I mean something about Montez Sweat kind of changed the trajectory of that defense. They still have Tremaine Edmonds, who's an excellent linebacker from Buffalo. They got some pieces there, and they do have a defensive minded head coach. So I think honestly, I think this is the year. I really do. I think this is a year. I don't think it's going to take a second year. I think if any team possibly can take a step back, I think it could be Detroit, actually.
Same, same.
But I really think the NFC North is positioned to be the best division in football. I
Oh,
really do. I think all four of these teams defensively are going to be fairly solid, and they have offensive firepower now.
so
They all
now
do.
here's where I poo poo on the Bears a little bit. Of course, Packers all the way, but in all like seriousness, so the Bears were the number two rush offense in the NFL,
Yep.
mainly because of Justin Fields and his ability to run, but they were one of the bottom five passing offenses. Are
Yep.
they going to be able to lift that pass offense enough to make up for what they lose in rush offense? And then, and that's one of those things where it's like, okay, the Lions are a pretty awesome rush defense, and so is the Minnesota Vikings. Even if they, you know, even if you think what you think about Minnesota, and literally the Packers have worked on a lot of. I mean, running just switching to a 4-3 in general is going to help them on their rush defense. And it's
Yep.
like, what exactly can they do to get themselves moved up? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I'm almost in that spot where are they going to be able to stop the pass? Because believe it or not, the Bears and the Lions were the top two rush defenses in the NFL last year.
Yeah.
And like, are they going to be able to stop the pass? That's always been the problem for both of those teams. So I don't know. I just if the Packers improve as much as they look like they have on paper, I really don't see the Bears being much of a problem, and I don't really care for the Lions either. But like,
Oh,
I
they're
don't
all
know.
going to be problems. All of them. All four of those teams in that division are going to be problems to some aspect. I think one of these four teams will suffer a devastating injury that dooms their season. But I think if they all stay healthy, I think the NFC North has a legit shot at getting four teams into the playoffs.
Oh, I'm not gonna. I can't move Minnesota that high right now. I mean, I actually like Minnesota. Okay, I take that back. I like Minnesota more than I like Detroit, but I can't move the Bears up that far unless Caleb Williams is literally like the next dude. You know?
Yeah. So looking at the things they did for the offensive line, it is they brought in they brought in four guys for basically the left side of the line, so they will fortify this line to a degree. And you're spot on with the front side of the defense. They've basically made no changes. The highest guy coming up is a fifth round pick in this draft in Austin Booker. Other than that, they are stout up front, just like you pointed out. And the things they drafted and brought in for on defense are almost exclusively in the secondary. The only other guys who are possibly up front, they're like third on the depth charts, like right now.
Right.
So they're content with what they are with up front, but they have plenty of pieces on offense that they can start to do some damage. Gerald Everett is
Yeah.
honestly a wide receiver, so I see that. Also, running back, they brought in DeAndre Swift, and I
Yep.
really don't think Philadelphia used that guy right. I saw the way DeAndre Swift ran in Detroit and the way he started the season with Philly, and that is totally opposite of how he ended in Philly. And again, too, this is all post Shane Steichen. So maybe these guys remembered how Shane Steichen ran that offense in Philly, and then things just fell off the rails, in all honesty. So I think you put DeAndre Swift in this offense. I forgot who their OC is right now. Let me bump up and see who it is. Shane Waldron. Why does that sound familiar? I forgot who that is, but I swear that's a good offensive mind. I just don't remember off the top of my head, but it looks solid.
Yeah. And see, so my issue, I guess, with Detroit is I don't feel they got any better. Like, David Montgomery's got another year on those wheels. But Jameer Gibbs he's solid. Don't get me wrong. Amon-Ra St. Brown is, one of the top receivers in the
He
league.
got really banged
And
up though. Just be
yeah,
careful on that.
yep. And Laporta's pretty good, right?
Yeah,
But
Laporte
like,
is great.
I don't feel like they've added anything. They kind of just went with the same team. And then if you even look at their draft, right? Yeah, they went out and got a number one corner in Arnold from Alabama. But
Yeah,
then the next round, they got another corner. And then, like, just looking at this grade on this tackle, they graded him a 38 out of 100. And they used a fourth round pick on that guy. Like, and their safety, a 42. Like, they literally got some of the, like, not in a mean way, but like some of the worst players in the draft,
they did.
and they only had six picks. Like, kind of like the Bears, where it's like, okay, this is what we're working with, and this is the best we can do. And then even going to like Minnesota, Minnesota didn't really do anything either in my eyes. I mean, yeah, I like JJ McCarthy, right? But like, unless he comes out right away, banging and throwing bombs, and it's a great situation to get into with Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, but like their defense is kind of
It's a little
like,
porous at times.
yeah, like I mean, unless they're really going with Sam Darnold, I mean, he's the number one right now, but like I'm so impressed with, and not just saying this because I'm a Packer fan, obviously, but I am so impressed with what the Packers did in the draft.
Yes. And notoriously, and I heard this on Fox today, the biggest thing that the Packers have to do, and I do think this is changing, just like it's changing in Milwaukee, how Milwaukee brought in Dame Lillard in a way. It's kind of like trading for almost a free agent in a way. I know the Bucs season is rough the way it is, but I love seeing that direction. I think Wisconsin in general for professional sports teams is becoming a destination for free agents. And I think Green Bay is on the road to doing that, especially with the young culture they got with Jordan Love now. And I think the Green Bay Packers have notoriously, year after year after year, made sure they draft really, really well because they struggle at getting free agents. I do think that changes soon, but I do think right now that this draft, I think Green Bay also knocked it out of the park, just like my Raiders and some of these other teams have. I think Green Bay fortified everything they needed to do. They didn't even think about wide receiver because Green Bay's like 5 deep and they're all fantastic, to be honest. So like they got that. They have Josh Jacobs now as the running back. I think he's going to meld really well. And to be honest, his overall game is better than Aaron Jones's. So I think all these things are going to work. Green Bay also drafted a really solid running back from Southern Cal. I think there's really good things in the mix here, man. This is a guy who fills almost that tailback position that you lose in Aaron Jones. You have another all-around back behind Josh Jacobs from last season. So right there, your running back core 1, 2, 3, solid.
So like this is something I read and I didn't actually know. So they got Jordan Morgan out of Arizona. Really solid, kind of like a top. I believe I want to say he was a top 5 tackle.
Okay.
I'm gonna find that really quick just before I say that and make a silly face out of myself. But I'm pretty certain he was a top 5 tackle. Nope, he was 6 on the big board. But so they got the number 1 linebacker in the second round, Edgerrin Cooper, which that dude is a legit like knockout artist. He runs like a 4.5 or something. I think he was a top 5 speed of front 7 players. Then they got Javon Bullard, the top safety in the draft.
Yes.
Versatile, just I mean the dude can play the slot because of how fast he is. Very physical.
Kind of Micah Hydish.
Yeah, kind of Micah Hydish. That's a good comparison.
Absolutely.
Still upset that we got rid of him.
Yeah, but the New York guy is pretty good too that you brought in.
That's true. They also got the number 2 safety in Evan Williams out of Oregon, which like
I saw that guy play. That guy's really good.
He runs a 4.5. Like
he was the guy in the Senior Bowl that I saw pick off my guy Joe Milton.
I was wondering if you're going to pick up on that.
Yes,
they were both of these safeties were the MVPs on each defense.
Wow. Yeah, when you do that in the Senior Bowl, like, man, that's money, man.
Then they got Tyron Hopper, and like that dude is like he's smaller in stature, but he's tall. But the dude is fast, like super fast. He came out of Missouri, and like they literally just fortified the defense with 2 top safeties, 2 really good linebackers, and you're just like, oh, okay, like let's add that to Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Quay Walker's really good.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you already have Jair Alexander. And let's spend some money on Xavier McKinney. Like, they are just. And then to go to the 4-3, now you put Kenny Clark in the middle with like a TJ Slayton. And then on the edge rushers, you got Preston Smith, Lucas Van Ness from last year, the number one pick.
Yeah,
Sean Gary's running from the edge. Edgerrin Cooper now. And like Tyrod Hopper. Like, I'm almost like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, there is
Green Bay's gonna have a very good defense.
Everywhere.
Yeah. And on top of that, the coordinator now from Boston College, I'm telling you, I kept tabs on Boston College games along the ticker from Saturdays, and I'm telling you, Boston College did not give up a ton of points. So this guy's going to scheme up a really good defense.
Yeah, and he was always talking about, and that's why they got McKinney. He was talking about how he would have that one safety that would move around and almost be a linebacker. Well, guess what? Now you just drafted two more of those guys that play the exact same way.
Yeah.
And they're running 4-5. You're like, and they want to hit you. Plus, like I said, the multiple linebackers that they got, the weak side linebacker and the strong side linebacker, are both fast. Like, Quay Walker was already fast in his own right. And the reason I like the 4-3, and people are going to probably just like kind of shoo this away, but Kenny Clark is no longer just tasked with plugging up the middle and letting guys loose. Now you got to go one-on-one with Kenny Clark, who's already an all-pro defensive tackle,
right?
Who's waiting to get that next pay bump.
Yeah,
it is going to be a problem.
Yeah, I do like a 4-3 defense a little more than a 3-4, because when you put four guys up front, it's really hard to go person for person. Granted, you are leaving yourself a little more thin in the secondary, but if you bring those guys and then you sneak some linebackers in here and there for that blitz that are kind of unchecked, you can do some pretty scary stuff.
Right, and I love that you said leaving yourself thin in the secondary. Well, we have one of the best corners in the game, and one of the best safeties in the game now.
Yes,
and it's like, might be a little thin, but I'd much rather have two of the best ones behind me.
Exactly. Yeah, they're definitely going to know what to do. And I think, too, the fact that you have three solid safeties, especially when you have games against Detroit and Minnesota, where they're going to try to run you into a track meet, you can swap out safeties and bring in a guy with fresh legs for a player so, and let another guy just kind of get his get the wind back in him and get that energy, and then bounce back out there and play and kind of keep bouncing back and forth to take care of that coverage.
Right. And like I said, all these linebackers are running 4-5. Like, you might be able to just back them up in zone, and then Rashawn Gary or Preston Smith can pin their ears back and just go.
Right. Exactly. I think that's the really smart way of building this defense. And I'll be honest, I mean, I looked at Green Bay, and I mean, they fortified the offensive line. They made sure to get an additional running back, which you needed, and then fortified that defense in several different ways. And I think that will absolutely pay dividends. I just look at this Green Bay team, and I'm like, this is a solid team. And it's like the most beautiful way to build a team that is basically unimaginable in today's NFL, because it's rookies. You're about to pay massive money to a quarterback that's young, and then you can start filling out that roster year after year and see who cuts it, and then pay those guys as it falls into place. We've never seen this ever in the NFL. To be honest, we've just never seen it. It is picture mathematically perfect what the Green Bay Packers are about to fall into. There's never been an NFL team in our lifetime that is as ideally young and placed perfectly position by position as Green Bay is. This is a true first that we're about to see.
They're basically like the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Like, exactly. That's a great comparison.
They have that one star at the top that you're like, okay, I can guarantee 30 from this guy. and
Yes.
everybody else just fills in, and you're like, I don't even know who J-Dub is, but this dude just put up 40. Like, what?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but like, okay, I know I'm on the Packer run now, but
It's solid
my
though.
the running back, Marshawn Lloyd. So I saw an interview of his like right after. This dude has a super chip on his shoulder. Like I was naming
Nice.
how like they got the number one running back, number one safety, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
This dude literally comes out and goes, "I'm the best running back in the draft." Like,
Good.
and you're
Yeah.
like,
He could be.
"Oh, right." And they got him in the third round. The dude averaged 7 yards a carry last year.
Holy smokes. And
Yeah,
honestly, Southern Cal was not that great.
they were not, but he is fast and he's 220.
Nice. And I think that attitude, the guy who also plays that position that has that attitude that he's always had a chip on his shoulder, and it was obvious 2 years ago, was Josh Jacobs.
Yeah,
Josh Jacobs has always had that chip. He hated Josh McDaniels, especially when McDaniels started him in the preseason. Like what? You're going to cut the best running back in the NFL? That's exactly what he went through. And now you just brought in a rookie who has that shared attitude that Josh Jacobs has. And together, those guys are both going to run really angry.
right. And I mean,
And they're
they're
good pass
basically.
catchers.
I was going to say that they're both dangerous pass catchers. They're literally the same guy.
Really.
Like
That's huge, man. That's awesome.
that. And my favorite part is that means AJ Dillon won't play very much.
No. But think about this. Now AJ Dillon is playing exactly what he's meant to be. He is a fullback, and he's a good pass catcher, and he's a great blocker. He's exactly what you need in a fullback. This is truly his position, not running back, but he is a fullback, and this is exactly what you need. If you didn't have an AJ Dillon, you'd be looking for a guy like that. So this is perfect actually for you guys. And he loves Green Bay, man.
That's no debate.
That's no debate.
Because
So
they did get rid of Josiah DeGuara, who was kind of like that tight end fullback hybrid.
okay,
So all right, this is the last thing I'll say about Green Bay's draft.
sure.
So Josh Jacobs is 5'10", 223. Marshawn Lloyd is 5'9", 220. They're
That's
literally the
perfect.
same person. Right.
Yeah, that is literally the same person. So that's pretty solid. And yeah, I think they did really well. And speaking of running backs and kind of a team that represents Green Bay in a weird kind of way, the New York Jets, I thought, had a really
Oh,
solid draft. And I
okay.
thought they brought in, and not only that, that little Wisconsin tie, bringing in Braylon Allen
Yep.
from Wisconsin, I thought was killer. Like it's a really really good way to go about it. And I mean, I look at this and like I see how like ESPN loves all the picks that the Buffalo Bills made, but I'll be honest, I'm not that thrilled about how Buffalo is trending. To be honest, I just think the picks that New York did to make sure that they have a solid running back core and still fortify that defense and start the draft with an offensive lineman. They probably need a little bit more offensive line help, but that's why you call up guys after the draft. I think the Jets are doing some really good things here, and not only that, they're finally going to go into this season and they won't be thin at the quarterback position. I think all three quarterbacks they can all do damage regardless of which of the three they go with.
Oh yeah. I mean, Tyrod Taylor and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that at least if Aaron Rodgers goes down, cross fingers that he doesn't. We don't
No,
want anyone to get hurt.
no.
Tyrod Taylor's pretty solid.
Yeah, and then the third guy of this who's definitely going to heal up and learn, but he was a awesome quarterback. He obviously would have been one of the top quarterbacks taken in this draft if he didn't go down. Jordan Travis from Florida State, man. That's
Yeah.
that's a guy. I'll be honest. In this draft, if you took a guy from Florida State, and I know they didn't get into the college playoff and they got smoked by Georgia, but man, these Florida State players, offense, defense, they're great. Whichever ones you got, they're really, really good.
Wow. He's the only player in FSU history with more than 50 touchdowns passing and 12 rushing touchdowns.
Woo! That's no
That's
debate.
insane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
like
Yeah.
Florida State's had some pretty nimble like quarterbacks. I mean, all the way back to like Charlie Ward.
Absolutely, they have. Even EJ Manuel's been one of those
Yep.
guys. Obviously, Tyrod Taylor is up there too. But man, they definitely have some really solid quarterbacks there. And it looks pretty good. Ironically, his favorite target, Keon Coleman, who I saw in the Senior Bowl, he actually was the first overall pick in the second round by the Buffalo Bills. So I do give Buffalo credit for finally saying, hey, let's go size. They're not like Monstar Las Vegas Raider size, but they do have that size that's finally going on between him, Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid. That's a solid start. They definitely plugged up some holes with some of the other defensive players they've missed. A little bit of help on the offensive line. They got some stuff there, but I don't know. I'm just still concerned about the overall direction of this team. And I think finally we're going to see what the Jets offense looks like when it's on all 8 cylinders this season.
True story.
And they still even beat the Buffalo Bills with Zach Wilson.
That's true. That's
like, yikes.
That kind of hurts my soul.
Yeah, it does. It does. So I think we're seeing a lot of good things go in the right direction for the Jets. And basically, they can figure out that offensive line. They can bring guys in if they have to sign guys, if they have to spend more money. They'll do it, man. I swear they'll do it. They know it's their one Achilles heel, ironically, but other than that, man, I think they checked off a lot of boxes across their roster now, and we've known they've had a good defense. So I'm really excited to see what that team looks like this season, and I am definitely kicking around thinking that the Jets could actually win this division in this upcoming season.
I am definitely thinking the Jets can win the division. So now I'm in this we split past this and my brain just had to go back.
Yeah, we did.
Are we in Minshew Mania in Las Vegas?
Oh, totally, man. Totally. Minshew Mania Vegas, regardless who the quarterback is for our team, if you can basically just dump the ball 5 yards per pass, we're going to dominate. Like, that's all we need is 5 yards a play. And we just got guys galore. And the thing is, even with all the monsters that we have, then Zamir White is going to just he'll never have 8 men in the box. He'll barely even have 7 guys in the box. He'll basically be dealing with 6 players at most. And Zamir White was already averaging 5 yards a carry before all this stuff happened when he was backing up Josh Jacobs. You add on this, I think Minshew is going to finally have the best offense he's ever had in his career. And it's going to be really fun to see, man. I think we're just going to have time of possessions. We're going to have like 8-minute drives every single time we get the football. And if we don't, then we go on defense. And it's going to be 3 and out for the other team because our defense is also jacked up like yours.
So, your defense is awesome. Like, yeah. I believe they were top 5 in scoring defense, right?
Yeah, we picked 6 and stripped 6 Patrick Mahomes twice in 10 seconds.
Yeah. So
and we drafted a guy from Pittsburgh who had 3 pick sixes in his career.
Nice. I like to think of your offense as the land of misfit toys.
I used to think that.
No, I still do. Because like there's so many guys that you're like, okay, this guy I remember being okay. This guy I remember being okay. Like, okay, Zamir White, right? Like Zamir White's solid.
He's great.
But he never really got his just due because Josh Jacobs was there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's back.
Alexander Madison. Like he was.
Oh, I don't even count him. I literally don't even count him.
He didn't get his due because of Dalvin Cook. Amir Abdullah, he didn't get his due because he was in Detroit behind Swift and all.
No. Amir Abdullah tore his ACL twice.
Yeah, there you go. And then it's like,
and he's a great tailback.
Yeah, he is. He's solid. Then you get Jacoby Myers from New England who
Yeah.
couldn't throw the ball to him. And it's like,
Yes.
okay, cool.
And
Now
he's
he's the number one.
dominated.
Michael Gallup's over there.
He
And
just showed up today. He's the
yeah,
5th Monstar.
like, and he never got his due because he was behind CeeDee Lamb.
Well,
It's like,
and a gruesome injury as well. I think
yeah,
he also
yeah,
tore his ACL.
yeah. But like, he was solid. And it's
Yes.
so like, you guys just have a bunch of solid dudes where you're like, this
Yeah.
guy's solid. He's solid. We never really knew if they were great or not, but
Yeah.
we're like, oh yeah, he's solid. I know that guy. But
Exactly.
now they're all Gardner Minshew. He's another one where it's like Gardner Minshew's solid, but we never got his just due. And so it's like
Exactly.
you got all these misfits just thrown together, and it's like if that defense is as good as it was last year, they only gave up 19 points a game. So I think these dudes can actually score 3 touchdowns.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I've been saying this to people that like if we ever get ahead by double digits in any game, I don't think we can lose any of those games. I think our defense is just too much, and our offense going out there for 8-minute drives on end. You get 3 of those, and that's pretty much a half.
Yeah, like this is insane. All right, listen to this. This is how insane your team is, right? So you guys scored 19.5 points a game and you gave up 19.5 points a game.
Exactly, and we were pretty much 500 by season's
Like,
end.
it's
Yeah.
like I've never seen that before in my whole life.
I know, and like if Josh McDaniels actually knew how to coach offense, like we probably would have been. Well, I think we would have won the division because by season's end we were like 2 games behind the Chiefs. So stuff like that, it was like it really didn't need to take much for us to like get there. It was just an absolute disaster to start the season.
Like you guys couldn't throw the ball 5 feet for some reason,
No, we
but you
couldn't,
all
man.
and you couldn't run either.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you were
Like
the
our
third
offensive line just fell apart.
you were the third worst running team in the league, but you also were like the best defense in the league. It
Exactly.
like if you could have just found a dude that could just like underhand lateral or something, you could have won a
Exactly.
division. It
Exactly.
blows
Yeah.
my mind.
That's why I think if you really got to look at 2 teams to really upset their division, and I think they have a ton of momentum to do it. Plus, they've drafted well, they've developed guys. I think the Raiders have a great shot to win the West, and I'm looking in a division right next to them in the AFC South, and I really think the Indianapolis Colts look really good, man.
Oh
They
yeah.
ended the season only 1 game behind the Texans, and they played their entire season with Gardner Minshew.
Hey, I love me some Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, you do. That's no debate.
I I am all about Gardner Minshew. Like, so I just needed to figure this out. Like, so Denver is going to be pretty bad. They were 8-9 last year.
Oh
You
yeah, I
guys
think
are
them and the
also
Chargers are trash.
you were also 8-9. So like one or two more wins. Okay, wait. This is my favorite part. Your point differential was 1.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like you can't make this stuff up.
No, no, you really can. It's just it's very ironic how just a little thing here or a little thing there can really sway your season in drastic directions. But it did. But I mean, I think when I look at like Denver, I look at the fact that their defense was rough. I mean, they gave up points galore last season, and I look at the Chargers, and they've gutted that team. That team is just gutted. I think their defense is still bad. And offensively, I mean, they ripped every tool and weapon they could away from Justin Herbert. I don't get
Yeah.
why they I really don't understand why they held on to him. I thought if this team was really honest about JJ McCarthy, that they would have flipped him, taken JJ McCarthy, and then taken both of Minnesota's first round picks and started over and basically
Yeah.
build the team in a way just like the Green Bay Packers are built. That could have
Like
happened.
And that's why I thought, a Justin Herbert for that JJ McCarthy pick
Yep.
and like Jordan Addison would have been perfect. Like,
Absolutely.
because literally, I mean, Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnson, like I don't even know who Lad McConkey is,
I don't know who
but
that
like
is. No.
Will Desley,
He's an okay
no,
end. Like he's
yeah,
like a bottom third tight end. And he was
yeah,
great because Russell Wilson makes every tight end great. That's why.
yeah. So it's like, what were they doing?
Yeah, I am really confused by that. And let's even bring up their draft and let's see. To me, like if
Oh,
they really wanted to do well, I think they needed a lot of draft picks. They do
wow.
have a fair amount of draft picks. They actually got
Do,
two extra draft picks than
do
what
you see that?
a normal team would have. What do I see?
So Lad McConkey was the wide receiver they got in the second round out of Georgia. His
Correct.
pro comp is Jordan Addison.
Okay. Wow.
That, that's
Uh,
that's hilarious.
that is ironic. That is absolutely ironic that he does compare to Jordan Addison. I saw a little bit of his tape. To me, like he's more of an outside version of a Hunter Renfro in a way. Is kind of what I see. But he's got great speed. I think he's got. To me, he just looks tougher. He's 6 foot tall, so he's definitely got that size factor. I like it, but it's going to take a lot more than that. Brendan Rice is from Southern Cal, and then Cornelius Johnson, a Michigan wideout. Not sure how those guys are going to wind up, but man, there's no tight end on this whatsoever. If I pull up our lads and see who they signed or who they've brought in, that's about the only saving grace. But Justin Herbert really depended on Gerald Everett last season, or basically whenever he's been playing quarterback. And I just don't know who is that. Oh man. Oh man, this is bad. This is a
Yeah,
really bad tight end core they have. Will Disley, Hayden Hurst, Donald Parham Jr. Like, wow, that is bad. And then
yeah.
they have the former running backs of the Baltimore Ravens.
And I know I was poking fun at your Raiders, but the Chargers, with all the weapons they had last year, only scored 1 point more than the Raiders.
Ugh,
Yeah,
that's bad. And grant there was a decent amount of Justin Herbert with either broken ribs or a busted finger on his throwing hand. But man, this receiving core they have is dreadful.
yeah.
And didn't Corey Linsley retire?
I thought so.
I
I
thought
thought
so
so.
too. He is still listed as a center, but it looks like they brought in a either free agent or traded from Carolina. But I thought Corey Linsley retired. I swear I heard that last week.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that myself right now.
Yeah. So if that's the case, this team is bad. This is a bad football team, man.
Yeah, and the weird part is like there's no like they got rid of all the weapons they did have, and I I just don't know why they would do that. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be honest too, like I am concerned about the defense. It looks like Harbaugh brought in a ton of free agents that were undrafted.
yeah,
Like it is going to be open season, and best man's going to make this team. And granted, he is going to get this team tough. But honestly, I think that defense is going to turn the corner before the offense turns the corner. I think they need at least another. I think they need at least another year or two to really get this thing going.
yeah, and I mean they don't have it. They don't have that time.
And they
Like
got to
their
hope
defense,
Hangs on. Like you really do,
yeah, their
because
defense is
behind them
bottom 10.
there's nothing. Yeah,
And that's where they spent all the money with Bosa and Khalil Mack and
I would
like,
have gotten rid of both.
yeah, you have to at this point.
Yeah, like I would have. I mean, they were already flipping the roster hard on offense. might as well flip the roster hard on defense and see what Minnesota thinks. I mean, I haven't heard anything. I don't know what's out there, but I just find it really hard to believe that LA and Minnesota were not talking to each other. I think they
Yeah,
both make a ton of sense in order to negotiate, translate picks, and move LA into a faster direction. I feel if the Chargers would have had JJ McCarthy and would have had multiple first round picks from the Minnesota Vikings, that this team would be flipping faster than how they are going to flip, if at all.
agreed. Because what's the point of having Joe Alt at left tackle and the star quarterback if you don't have any weapons?
Right. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of I forgot the guy's name, but the Indianapolis Colts did that a few years ago with their draft. I forgot who they drafted. I think it was a guy out of Notre Dame, if I want to say. They kind of went that route, and it really hasn't translated yet. So I definitely see that there, but like you need more picks because obviously to me, Corey Linsley retiring definitely changed things. And you could have spent one of those 3 picks on a center. I know Tampa Bay took a center with one of their first overall picks, and Tampa Bay was picking towards the end of this draft because they were a playoff team. They did fairly well this season. So if you wanted a center, you could easily draft a center, and you could probably draft a center instead of Joe Alt. And also the hit rates on centers in the first round are better than any position in football. If you draft a center in the first round, I saw this from Hembo on ESPN when he posted it. If you draft a center in the first round, they will follow up with a second contract over 90% of the time.
Wow.
Yeah, that's higher than it. Like the next closest position is, I think, like an edge rusher on defense for like 60% or something like that. But it's a massive drop off from like
But
center to every other position.
so I'm just comparing their draft to their roster, and like they drafted 3 wide receivers, 2 corners, and it's like, well, you have Derwin James and
Yeah, he's
Asante
really good.
Samuel. Why do you need corners? Why do you need defensive backs? Like they needed weapons, and to
Yeah.
draft a bunch of guys that late, like sixth, seventh round, doesn't do anything for you.
No, and I think like how people were pointing out how like the Buffalo Bills wanted to acquire more draft capital so they could address multiple positions that needed help, but yet they're kind of still in that high octane. You got Josh Allen. I mean, that's a top 3 quarterback right there. You're still pushing that and thinking that you can get there. Basically, the Chargers just abandoned all sensibility and just started going position by position, whether it made sense or didn't.
Yeah, like and I give the teams credit that um go best player available, but not if it's the same player over and over, like same
Right.
position. You
Yes.
gotta mix it up or something. But their
Yeah.
team just looks horrible.
Yeah. You can't just do best player available. You need to be the best player available that makes sense on your roster. That's how you build a really solid draft in whatever sport it is. So I'm really confused with them. If we want to go to really confusing and look at the team who I think is just awful and has no clue what they're doing, I initially thought this team would win their division, but now I think they are just absolute trash. The Atlanta Falcons. Like let's finally get to them. And
Oh
ironically,
boy.
the Michael Penix pick is good, but ironically, like now you put in like this massive like mental cabin of doubt in the new guy that you brought in Kirk Cousins, and you gave him no help whatsoever. Nothing. Like they are missing weapons on offense galore, and not on top. And on top of that, you pissed off your starting $100 million plus quarterback.
Yep. Uh I mean, this is another one of those teams where they just drafted the same stuff over and over. I mean, they drafted 3 defensive tackles.
And a running back.
Like,
on top of having at least two really good running backs last time I checked.
Yeah. I don't understand. Like, none of those players project to be impact players out the gate. They have their defensive line is already kind of set. Obviously Algier and Robinson aren't going to get passed up anytime soon. It's like, what are you doing? Like,
They're missing two wide receivers and a tight end. And until Kyle
yeah,
Pitts shows up, you're not a tight end. He's not that good. I've never thought I never liked him since coming out of college, and he's gotten even worse in the NFL. Like, they literally just have Drake London and Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier on offense. That's literally their entire offense. It's like the
yeah,
Dallas Cowboys from last season.
yeah.
Basically,
Like, I'm looking at Rook, the defensive tackle out of Clemson. They're moving him to defensive end on the depth chart here, so he's a backup. Uh, Braylon Trice is projected. I don't even. Oh, he's projected to be a backup linebacker. That was their third round pick. Obviously, Michael Penix, their first round pick's a backup quarterback. Like, none of these players project to be anything except backup. Like, why
yeah,
would you draft for positions you're already set at?
yes. And this needs to be the year that they take the step forward. And they drafted a defensive head coach that, in my opinion, should not be a head coach. He was a disaster with Tampa Bay, and I think he's an okay defensive coordinator. I don't think he's great.
Yeah,
I think okay.
I'm looking at their wide receiver core, and it's Drake London, Rondell Moore, and Darnell Mooney, and it's like, great,
Wow.
yeah, like, sure, that's
Like,
that's
it's bad.
well, that's bad, yeah. Like, again, it's a bunch of people that no one wants, but somehow they get these contracts where you're like, oh yeah, Darnell Mooney. Well, no, the Bears literally got rid of him and filled up with good wide receivers. Like,
Yeah.
Rondell Moore hasn't been relevant in a couple of years.
Yeah, he's like a 3 with the
Yeah.
Cardinals before Marvin Harrison got drafted.
And now he's a 3 with the Falcons.
Yep.
At best.
Yep. Yeah, it's really rough. I mean, I like Darnell Mooney in the slot, but man, you really should have had, like, really, in all honesty, Darnell Mooney should be the fourth best receiver on a really good receiving core. You really should be.
Yeah.
So, and Drake London to me is still fighting against number one coverage after playing in college. And that's tough, man. That is really, really tough for any wide receiver. So I think he would love to have some of that pressure taken off him. I mean, honestly, defenses are really just going to have to stop Drake London. Drake London
Yeah.
and Bijan Robinson. You stop those two guys, they're done. Like, they're just done. They cannot move that football then.
That's no debate.
That's no debate. I mean, it's why I look at this division, and I look next door within their division to just a little bit south of Atlanta in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like ESPN says, they didn't really fill their needs, but they did. They just had their center retire. They drafted one immediately at the end of the first round in Graham Barton from Duke, and then they made sure to, like, take care of, like, the other positions on offense that can be a little bit sketch. Granted, they have good things going on at tight end. They have a solid running back core with what they got, but still, adding Bucky Irving from Oregon, he's a guy I love. I have him as one of the best running backs in college that's in this draft. And then also bringing in Jalen McMillan opposite of Rome Odunze. I think that's a really great pick there. So I like that. They added more to the offensive line. They finished the draft at tight end, added a little bit on defense for being as much of a defensive-minded head coach that Todd Bowles is. Excuse me, but like they really made sure to take care of positions of need, and the ones they didn't really hit much on looks like a little bit of offensive line and corner. I mean, I'm pretty sure like Todd Bowles and Bruce Arians, they're going to figure it out, man. And they still have Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, Chris Godwin, Kate Otten, that defense. Like they're going to figure it out, man. I really like the way the Buccaneers drafted, and I really like the way the Buccaneers are built.
Right. And offensively, they're already set. Like you said, they fortified that offensive line a little bit. Their defense has already been good. Like they basically just said, "Hey, we're good enough to win this division again.
Yep.
Let's get some young players to fill in some spots, and let's run it back."
Exactly, and get that experience that they had from losing last season. They lost their offensive coordinator who got a head coaching job in Carolina, I believe. And if that's the case, then they brought in a coordinator that runs a very similar system to that. So they did their due diligence to make sure that language stays the same. And then this isn't just a whole new can of worms for Baker Mayfield, which ironically, if we go way out west to the LA Chargers, again, Justin Herbert is going to have to learn an entirely new playbook with an entirely new set of pieces, with a new head coach. I think this is going to be a disaster. I really think the Chargers are going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL this season.
Which is why we projected them to trade for J.J. McCarthy.
Exactly. It made a ton of sense, and I think they probably would still be bad, but I think the ability to flip that team is going to be much easier if they did that than what they're going to encounter. And if it's I'll be honest, like as early as it is, but with a guy like Justin Herbert, now you're adding more pressure on Harbaugh, just like we're seeing the pressure that is now building with Sean Payton and the Broncos. I think both these guys got basically 2 years to show that if you don't flip this team in 2 years, I think both those guys are gone.
Yeah. And that's no debate.
That's no debate, man. Exactly. So there's that. I've heard good things about the Eagles offense. Actually, the other team in LA, the Rams, that is a team that I like. I really do like the Rams. They had a plethora of draft picks here. I think I'm seeing like 9. I'm seeing at least 9 draft picks here. They had a really nice draft last season. We know what happened with Puka Nacua. I'll be honest, I really like the trajectory of this team, and I think this team has a shot at winning this division in the NFC West. I think there's some really good stuff here. Blake Corum in round 3, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean they filled in where they needed. I don't know about the Rams yet. The loss of Aaron Donald is huge.
It's massive. I actually saw the moment Aaron Donald announced retirement, the projected win total for the Rams dropped by 2 games. That, like, for a defensive player, that's massive.
It is. And, I mean, it makes good sense. Yeah, if Nakua and Cup and Tutu Atwell can just be on the same page and all be healthy, this team is really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what it takes. Their running back core is solid with the guys they got. I really like the way this team looks, and I think they're going to play loose too. Like they're not going to have those expectations that the 49ers are going to have. You'll have Matt Stafford there. I think too. They'll also have. I'm forgetting their backup quarterback. The guy that was from
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Not Jimmy Garoppolo. He is.
I mean, I know, but he's on the roster. It's Stetson Bennett.
Stetson Bennett. Yeah, Stetson Bennett's really solid, man. I saw that guy play in the preseason before he had that self-induced suspension, basically. I think Stetson Bennett's is really solid. So if they lose Stafford, they got him. They didn't draft a quarterback, so yep, that's who they're rocking with. But I think they got some really good things out there, and I am excited to see how the Rams look. I think they'll. Granted, the Aaron Donald replacement is tough, but they immediately went out of the gate drafting an edge rusher, so it's a good start.
And defensive tackle.
Yep, absolutely. They made sure they went for both of them to start, both from Florida State.
Yeah, I was gonna say both of those guys from the same school, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, like I said, man, I think a lot of people last year really amped up guys from Georgia. For me, this year, I think these Florida State guys, man, I really think they're awesome. So if you got some of these Florida State guys early, I think you got some players on your hand for sure.
That's how it works.
Exactly, man. Exactly. So, yeah, that's about everything that we're looking at for now. So yeah, I think we got a pretty darn good show here, and we got a good outlook going on into summer and then training camp season. We'll kind of break down some of these teams a little bit more, give you some breakdowns. But I think it's a pretty good show for what we got for NFL draft recap.
Boom.
Boom. So for myself, Steve Metrics, and your boy,
DJ Trigg.
Together, we are No Debate Sports, and that's No Debate.